guys, it is Creative Theories here, and guys, we have just got the first few Islanders for the brand new Love Island series, Love Island All-Stars, which is going to be seeing loads of iconic Islanders from the past 10 series of UK Love Island return in the villa together, and it's going to be a whole Love Island series with these iconic Islanders who we love. And so, some of the Islanders have first been announced, the initial Islanders that we're going to get, none of the bombshells or anything like that, just the first set of Islanders who we will see on day one next week. And so I thought, let's make a video just going through these Islanders and seeing which ones we like returning, which ones we don't like returning, and any drama that we might begin to see, and we can speculate about that. There's going to be no particular order to this video, we're just going to run through some of the Islanders, probably not in series order, just a random order, just to see what thoughts come up. And before we go any further, please make sure that you've clicked that red subscribe button down below and have your notifications turned on. So for starters, I thought the normal thing to do would be with an All-Stars series where you have 10 Islanders to start with and there are 10 series, is to have an Islander from each series as your starting point. They haven't gone for that. In fact, there are some series that aren't represented at all in this original cast list, and there are some series that have a lot of Islanders on. Series 7 seems to have quite a few, just from a quick glance that I've had. So that's a weird but also interesting choice that they've gone for. And so far, just from looking at some of the Islanders, some of them I'm really happy about seeing, and some of them I'm not so happy about seeing. Let's start with one person who I'm not the happiest about seeing. And that is from the latest series, Messy Mitch. Now, I just think of all of the Islanders who we could have seen from that series, Mitch is not the one who I was thinking of. It seems a bit of a waste, and I just hope that he doesn't act like the way that he did last series. I actually really liked Molly and Mitch at the start. I wasn't really a big fan of Zachariah. However, as time went on, Mitch just got incredibly annoying. By the time of Casa Amor, I wanted him gone, and he just stayed, and it was just really, really dull and annoying, and I'm kind of a bit annoyed that he's back. I am shocked that they didn't bring Scott back in, and I really hope that as a bombshell, Scott does return, because Mitch and Scott's awkward kind of tension that they have is really funny, and that has carried on through to social media after they both left the Islanders. Plus, Scott seems to be the Love Island expert now. He, of course, left UK Love Island and then went straight on to American Love Island, to the point where some of the American Islanders recognized him from the current series in the UK, then was on the Love Island Games. He basically has spent the last year absolutely engulfed in all of this Love Island stuff. And so I thought, well, you might as well bring him back for Love Island All-Stars, as he kind of has made himself known as a Love Islander All-Star. I feel like Mitchell hasn't, and it's kind of a bit of a shame. So I do still think he will be good, and it's definitely going to be interesting seeing him, especially with some of the other Islanders who are on this list, who we'll get onto in a sec. But for now, I'm not the most excited for Mitch to return. In a similar sense to Mitch, and kind of like the equivalent of Mitch in their respective series, we have from Series 5, Anton returning, who again was basically like Mitch, by which I mean I was invested in him at first, and then as he got on, he just got more and more annoying. In Series 5, we left him with Belle, but then once he came out of the island, he had a bit of tension with a few of the Islanders. For example, for some reason, saying that Molly May wasn't his friend, for no outright reason whatsoever. He's a bit of a weird one, and to have him back, I'm a bit like, is there a need? Because Series 5 is so iconic. There are so many Islanders you could have brought back. And they chose to bring back Anton. Not the biggest fan. And I feel like some of the girls from Series 5 could have been better. I know we are getting Amy as kind of like one of the After Sun presenters, which is going to be really, really cool. But there are so many other Islanders that you could get from Series 5. I think the problem with Series 5 is that it is so big and iconic and has made so many Love Island stars, you know, biggest being Tommy Fury and Molly May, that a lot of even the single Love Islanders don't want to return. I know Maura Higgins has said that she never wants to return as an Islander. We've of course seen her return as a host, and so Series 5 was going to be a bit of a tricky one because you have so many of these iconic Islanders trying to choose which one. Anton being the one to choose, not sure whether that was a good idea, but thank goodness we do have another person from Series 5 who is also another guy. We have Chris Taylor, who basically has made himself known from Love Island and has appeared in a lot of other celebrity stuff. He's appeared in a lot of reality shows, he's very big on TikTok and quite a big presenter now, and he even appeared in the Barbie movie. I think bringing Chris back is a great idea, especially as a startup line, because currently, like I've said, Anton and Mitch aren't really those Islanders who everyone would necessarily get really excited for about an all-star cast. Chris Taylor is, because he was a fan favourite in Series 5 and he's been relevant ever since, and so I think bringing him back is a brilliant idea. Personally, from Series 5, if I was going to choose a guy, why not Ovi? I don't know whether Ovi is with anyone or not, haven't really checked up on that, but I really hope if Ovi is single that he does return. But apart from that, Chris as a return, especially if we're not going to get Mora, is a great idea. Let's move on to the series that we have the most representation of in this initial set of Islanders, and that is Series 7, which I think is a really interesting choice because I think Series 7 is usually one of those ones that seems to be overlooked, but actually I think was one of the most iconic series that we had. That was the series with Millie, with Chloe, with Faye and Teddy, with Jake and Liberty, and speaking of them two, we have the return of both Jake and Liberty. And I think that is very interesting because them two were the couple who started off on day one in Series 7 and it looked like they were going to make it to the final, and they only started breaking up during the dates with the final 5 couples where Liberty suddenly realised that Jake isn't who he wanted and it was a bit awkward, and then suddenly they split off. Jake caused quite a bit of a stir in the villa quite a few times, especially with people like Faye, but everyone was rooting for Jake and Liberty, and since they are both single and have been single since they left the villa, it'll be interesting to see them both together and see whether anything could rekindle. And speaking of which, they've decided to also add in both their closest mates from their respective series. So we have Kaz also returning, who was best friends with Liberty throughout the series and has remained best friends with Liberty since leaving the villa. And so seeing Kaz there, whilst Liberty could be tempted to get back with Jake, is going to be interesting, and I'm really excited to see that. And we also have Toby returning, who was also quite close with Jake throughout that series as well. And so I think out of Series 7, they've chosen some good candidates. I'm really excited to see Jake and Liberty, and I think seeing Kaz again will be really interesting. It's a shame that we don't have Chloe Burris because I think she was so iconic, and to be honest, I would have preferred her over Toby, but if we had to have one of them, I'm glad it is Toby as well. But there are so many great people from that series, so there was a lot of people who they could have chose from. But it's interesting that they went for Series 7 as kind of like a big selling point, as a lot of these Islanders, like I said, are from this same series. And also, can we just say, Jake looks so different. Is it just me? Here's what he looked like before, and here's what he looks like now. Like, very, very different. I didn't even recognise them at first. Moving on to Series 6, the first winter Love Island, and this also is going to be technically a winter series of Love Island, which I know some people are a bit annoyed about. Personally, I don't mind it, as I think in the summer we should have a proper original series. However, I know there's quite a few things of like Love Island fatigue, I do get that, but from Series 6 we do have Demi returning. I think this is an interesting choice, and Demi was a really interesting character in Series 6 because she was one of the ones who I feel like everyone liked Demi, and it was just kind of a bit sad as to what happened to her. She of course got with Naz, Naz went to Casa Amor and returned and basically left her standing there alone. She then got with Luke M, and we know Luke M and her didn't end up working out. Luke M is instead with Lucy from Series 5, and so Demi was just that really nice, sweet, smiley, bubbly personality, and I think every villa kind of needs that, and she'll definitely be good for providing that for this villa. I haven't really got much to say. I feel like that series had quite a few possible candidates who could have returned. I think it would have been interesting to see Shawnice return from that series, maybe even Rebecca, and if we get a chance for Bombshell, bombshells, maybe they could be on the playing cards as well. So far, we've kind of discussed a lot of the islanders who are from Series 5 onwards, and we haven't really discussed any islanders who are from some of the really, really early series. I think Series 1 is going to be one of those hard ones because it was in 2015. A lot of the islanders are a lot older now, and I'm not sure whether you'd want necessarily, if you're in your mid-30s, maybe even possibly 40s, you would necessarily want to return to Love Island as a reality show. But we do have Hannah Elizabeth returning, who isn't surprising at all. She basically made history on the first series of Love Island by being the first person to ever, and I think the only person to ever do this, get engaged before the show has even ended. She met Max Morley in the villa and then decided to get engaged to him while she was in the villa, which I think is a weird thing to do. So bringing her back probably is just going to add much more drama, and I think that's really, really cool. Also from Series 1, we have Louis Morrison. This is a really interesting choice because he, of course, got together with Callie in Series 1, and then they ended up having a child together in 2017. However, they're no longer together, so why he would think it's cool to return to Love Island several years later is up to him, but I think what an interesting choice, especially considering he had a child with one of a previous islander. Personally, I wouldn't, but he's back, so it's going to be interesting to see what that's like. From Series 4, we've got the iconic Georgia Steele returning, who basically is known in Love Island history for this.
Very loyal.
And I don't really need to say anything more about her because I think everyone is like, she is iconic, let's bring her back. So I'm excited to see her. And finally, we also have the return of Georgia Harrison. This one I think is going to be really interesting because she unfortunately has had to go through a lot of issues in her relationships in the past. Her ex-boyfriend Stephen Bear, unfortunately she was in a case with violence against women with him, and he is now in prison. And so I think it's going to be really interesting seeing Georgia back, getting back into the reality space, and getting back into the reality space of wanting to fall in love with a reality star, especially with that dark past that she unfortunately has. But I think it's really cool that she is back, and it's going to be interesting to see what she's like. So that is our set for the first few islanders who we're going to see in Love Island All-Stars. It's an interesting set of islanders. I wouldn't say none of it is necessarily wow yet, which I suppose they're leaving the massive surprises for the bombshells, which does make sense, but I do think you need a few surprises in the first few lineup. I think the biggest surprise here is having Jake and Liberty together. Everyone else I'm not the most excited to see. It is a shame that we haven't got anyone from Series 8. Series 9, I'm very glad that we don't have anyone from, and I really hope we don't get anyone from Series 9 because that series was awful. But Series 8, with the series being Ekin-Su and Davide's series, that had some interesting people in it, and so it's a shame that we haven't got any from them, but the people from that series will probably appear as bombshells at some point. So I am really excited to see where Love Island All-Stars goes, and it's going to be interesting to see whether this is a success or a fail. But anyway guys, that's the end of this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, make sure that you smash that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Guys, let me know down below in the comments, what do you think about these islanders? Do you think these are a good choice for the starting lineup for a Love Island All-Stars? Who do you hope is a bombshell? Or do you think they should have changed a few of the islanders up? And who would you have as your opening lineup? Let me know all your thoughts down below, and as always, we've been here on Gate of Theories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.
I heard you question my stability. You think I'll fall just like a guillotine, but I am here to stay. Won't